Is law school worth it? When we look at the cost of law school and the amount of money you can expect to make out of law school, is a law degree the right choice for you? Well, we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty numbers so that you can make a more informed decision about whether law school is something you want to pursue. And be sure to stay until the end because I'm going to share with you guys the 3 things to keep in mind when you're making this decision about whether or not to go to law school. So if you're excited to dive in, smash that like button and let's go. So let's first take a look at how much law school costs. And there's 3 important numbers to keep in mind here. The first is the average cost of law school tuition, which is $138,000 or $46,000 a year for 3 years. Then we have the average cost of living, which is $68,000 or $22,500 per year for 3 years. And that total is $206,000. But there's a third number here that a lot of us don't even think about when we make that decision to head into law school, which is the opportunity cost of not working for those 3 years after graduating college and instead going and pursuing a law degree. And so that opportunity cost number is $165,000 or $55,000 a year for 3 years, which is the average college graduate salary. And so total, we have a cost of $371,000. Now, in addition to these 3 main costs, there's another category of costs to be aware of as well, and this has to do with student loan debt, because most of us don't have $200,000 just laying around that we can use to finance law school, and so the vast majority of law students will take out student loans to be able to pay for law school. But when you take out student loans, let's say $200,000, you're not just borrowing that amount of money, you're also paying interest on that. So 3 things to keep in mind. The first one is that when we're talking about interest on student loan debt, that can be anywhere from 4% on the low end to 16% on the high end. The second thing to be aware of is that interest kicks in right away, not just when you graduate law school, but in real time during those 3 years of law school, you'll be accumulating interest as well. The third thing to be aware of course, is if you're bringing any student loan debt from undergrad or grad school, and in total, the average law student will graduate with $180,000 in student loan debt. So now let's talk about that second piece, which is how much money can we expect to make out of law school? Because most of us go to law school to, yes, do work that's exciting and meaningful and challenging, but also we're hoping that we get paid really well to do it, not the least of which because we're paying so much for this law degree to allow us to do this work at all. So when we look at the median starting salary across the board, in 2021, that was $75,000, so about $20,000 more than the college graduate looking for their first-time job. But that $75,000 isn't totally representative of all of the salaries across the board because the starting salaries coming right out of law school are very bimodal in nature, meaning that there are a set of salaries that are concentrated at the lower end of the spectrum, and there are a set of salaries that are concentrated at the higher end of the spectrum with very few in between. When we take a look at the salary numbers peaking at the high end of the spectrum, we're looking at about $200,000 per year starting out after law school graduation, which is a huge number. But it's also important to realize that only about 20% of law graduates are making that kind of money. And it's also important to realize that the number one factor that contributes to whether or not you're competitive for those positions is going to be your law school ranking, and more specifically, your 1L class ranking. So if you're curious about what it takes in your 1L year to really position yourself for those jobs, definitely check out this video here where I do a deep dive looking at where you go to law school and what your class ranking is as to where you need to be in your class to compete for those big law positions. The much more common starting salary range is going to be this peak over here, which is $45,000 to $80,000 a year, which is over 50% of the starting salaries of new law graduates, and then 30 to 35% are falling somewhere in the middle. So if you've made it to this point in the video, I'm so curious, does the cost of law school and the expected starting salary make you lean into going to law school or make you lean away from going to law school? Let me know in the comments below. I'm so curious to find out. Now let's talk about the 3 things to keep in mind now that we have this information and how it can help us inform whether or not we decide to pursue a law degree. The first one is scholarship money, because scholarship money can be a huge game changer in driving the cost of law school down to make that expected starting salary much more viable for you as an option. And so when we're talking about scholarship money, I'm not just talking about a few $1,000s. That can be a possibility, but there are a lot of law schools out there that will give full scholarships scholarships, partial scholarships, and half scholarships to students that they're looking to recruit. And the number one most powerful factor in that recruitment process is your LSAT score, because high LSAT scores are very valuable to law schools because it helps improve their ranking status. And so the higher you can get that LSAT score, the more valuable it is, not just in terms of admissions, but also in terms of the scholarship money that you can get. The second thing to keep in mind when making this decision is, are you willing to learn the strategies for getting high grades your 1L year? Because we talked about how your 1L year class ranking is the most powerful metric in determining whether you will be eligible for these big law positions. So if the starting salary at a big law firm is something that is driving your decision to go to law school, then the question becomes, am I willing to learn those strategies and put them into place and implement them to position myself for the grades I would need to get that job? And if you're curious about what those strategies actually look like, check out this video here where I broke down what it really looks like to take B range grades to A range grades and get yourself in a position to be at the top of your 1L class ranking. In addition to that calculus though, remember that when we're talking about big law jobs paying $200,000 a year starting out, we're also talking about working 2,000 to 2,500 billable hours per year. So if that's something that you want to take a deep dive into as to whether a day in the life as a first-year associate is something you would even want to live through, then check out this video here where I talk about what it's really like to be a big law first-year associate making $200,000 per year and if that's something that's worth it to you. The third thing to keep in mind is that you may be watching this video and thinking, yeah, a law degree to me is worth $180,000 in student loan debt, 7 to 8% interest per year, making $45,000 to $80,000 starting out because being a lawyer is what I want to do and practicing law has always been my dream. Then that's a really good indication that law school still might be a really good decision for you. So these are all things to take into consideration. And yes, the money is important, but of course there's also the piece of just being able to build the career and build the life that you want. And so with this video, I'm hoping to just help you guys make as informed a decision as possible, not necessarily trying to sway your decision one way or the other, because I went to law school and that was a wonderful choice for me. I loved that I made that decision. Now, in full transparency, I did go to law school with a full scholarship, and so of course that made a difference in the cost-benefit analysis. But the other thing that I also had were mentors that really helped teach me the strategies to get as high in my 1L class as possible. And so a combination of those two things really painted my experience for me and why it was a really good choice. And so just think through some of these things when you are ultimately making that decision about whether being a lawyer is for you. And if you're thinking that law school might be for you, then definitely check out my free Need to Know guide. It has the top 7 things that I wish I knew when I was starting law school so that you can know what to expect, know how law school operates, and know what you need to do in order to be successful. So with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one.